Yes.
Salãmun Alaykum.
Salam, Jeff. Salam all. It is start now.
Not
Yeah,
yet. We're
yeah. It's
almost.
starting.
Oh,
Just give me a few minutes, inshallah. Okay,
Okay. So
and
hmm.
how's today, Jeff?
Oh, hey, how's it going? It's pretty good. Pretty good day. Alhamdulillah. Thank you. Yep. We got snow on the ground here, so it's that's always nice. I love spring snows. It's really nice. Yeah.
I just finished watching the election presidential debate in
Oh,
Indonesia.
oh, wow, wow. Is it pretty contentious? Is it a very close debate between the two, or the contest? A close
Yeah,
contest? Yeah. Mhm. I see.
yeah. We will go for election on 17 April.
Is one of the candidates more towards communism by chance?
Sorry?
Is it a diverse difference between two? Like, for example, communism versus a socialistic capitalism, or what is it? What's the
No, no,
difference?
no.
No.
We have no issue for the ideology.
Oh,
For the ideology.
right, right.
So, but we have two candidates. One from the civil. Yes, like ordinary people. Then one
Oh,
from the army.
oh, I see. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So of course they have their own opinion or their own
Hmm.
statement
Right,
regarding about the country. The first person is they have view from the army side,
right.
and the others is from the business sides. Even though the General Prabowo is a businessman as well.
Oh, okay.
He
Ah,
has about, what do we say, $10 million maybe.
oh,
He has
wow.
his own money.
What does he do? Does he sell military equipment to the army?
No, 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 no. He's a
Oh,
businessman too.
oh,
He's a
okay.
businessman too.
Yeah.
He's studying in the US
Oh,
from a child.
oh, I see. Hmm.
He never studied in Indonesia except in military.
Right. Wow.
he
Wow.
he came from the rich person in Indonesia before.
Right. 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 Is how does religion play amongst these candidates? How important is their uh, statements on Islamic ideas and things like that? How much does that play?
Actually, Indonesia never have any kind of issue about religion,
Oh, okay.
because in Indonesia we still claim as ahli sunnah wal jamaah. So as long as they concern on the sunnah and the Quran, so I think
Mm,
there will be no more issue.
I
But
see.
if I go for the election, that will be going to be big issue in Indonesia.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I have no intention to go for election.
Right. 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 I wonder how old do you have to be to run for president there? Do you know?
Well, we have no standard on
Oh,
on on ages.
I see.
So did you say his name was General Probowol, like your name?
Oh yeah, of course.
That's the same name. That's why I like him.
Actually, we have some, I don't know, descendant from the ancestor. So before Indonesia is born, we call it like what do we say? A kingdom, which means Indonesia. Yeah, before Indonesia born.
Yeah.
So I saw the, what do we say? Like tree of life, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Prabowo, it's from the second. The second son. The second son of the King Hamengkubuwono third, Hamengkubuwono second, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I see. So what you're telling us is that you're royalty. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, my royalty. And then my ancestor is from the four children.
I see. Yeah.
So we have the same grandfather.
Oh wow. Well, then your future is, if he wins, your future is great. You're like cousin. Great.
Has nothing to do with that. That's not related at all. I don't even know him.
No, I know. I'm just playing.
If I know him, maybe, yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
you are my cousin.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you give me some project or something?
Exactly.
Or if you did something wrong, it's gonna ruin your name.
Oh, that's true. Oh no.
Yeah. Ever someone asked me, Haryo, your name is Prabowo as well. So you have relation with the general? Oh no, because it's not win on last election, I said.
I get it.
Okay, is that now? Solomon. Oh, Solomon on preparing.
Oh, it's already on YouTube, probably. Your whole family history.
Are you sure?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
Yeah, it's on, but that's okay. I don't
Oh shit! Are you sure, Edward? It's already on
Yes,
YouTube?
it is. Yeah. It's on YouTube. It is.
Yeah. Okay, I'll quiet then.
No, Solomon? Oh, he's not there. So okay.
Jeff, how's about my answers regarding your story?
Oh yeah, no, I saw those exactly. I saw exactly what you responded. I agree.
Because in my understanding, it's quite different about deja vu and the dream, the sign of dream. Like that's too different.
There's deja vu. He didn't call it deja vu, but I agree with you. It does refer to. It does. It sounds like deja vu. I don't know. Maybe there's a dream. That's the thing. That's a good point. It sounds like deja vu is what he's talking about there too. But it's talked about in terms of dreams. See, I don't know. I don't have an active dream life, so I really don't remember much of my dreams anyway. So I'm not a good one to
I agree with you.
compare. What's that?
What's that, Jeff? Edward?
I was just
maybe there's
I was playing Jeff. I'm playing Jeff as Jeff talks. I'm having Jeff talk to Jeff.
I don't have an active dream life. Oh, whoa! How'd you do that?
You're talking to yourself.
How did you do that? What are you doing? How did you do that?
No, I just got the computer next to the phone and we're doing the pen on the phone, and then I'm using the computer to play the live chat. And now I'm going to splice your voice and edit and have you say wrong things.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I'll just move my lips.
Oh, I see you got the Russian mafia hairstyle right now.
Yeah. I'm here to keep an eye on you.
Oh my God. Personal information here. No, it's not true. That was a joke, everybody. I just tease him about the hair.
Yeah. That's right. The lack of it, actually.
There, Solomon already active.
Sorry, what happened?
Oh, we were just fooling around.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, I guess we can start now. So we are going to start reading. This was outside. Okay. So we're on Surah 4. And we're reading from verse 129.
In Indonesia, mostly start their what do you say? Well, the recitation is with Al-Fatihah. Is that familiar in here too? In the US too?
Some
No,
people
we
do.
seek God from Satan to reject it, like God says.
What?
We start our Quran study. We just seek refuge in God from Satan to reject it, and we start.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So let's seek refuge in God from Satan to reject it. And you guys can mute your microphones. That would be great.
Good idea.
Yes. Okay. Unmute. Pamela. Okay. All right. I was okay. Polygamy discouraged. You can never be equitable in dealing with more than one wife, no matter how hard you try. Therefore, do not be biased as to leave one of them hanging, neither enjoying marriage, nor left to marry someone else. If you correct this situation and maintain righteousness, God is forgiver, most merciful. If the couple must decide to part, God will provide for each of them from his bounties. God is bounteous, most wise. To God belongs everything in the heavens and the earth, and we have enjoined on those who received the scripture before you, and enjoined on you that you shall reverence God. If you disbelieve, then to God belongs everything in the heavens and the earth. God is in no need praiseworthy. To God belongs everything in the heavens and the earth, and God is the only protector. If he wills, he can annihilate you, O people, and substitute others in your place. God is certainly able to do this. Anyone who seeks the materials of this world should know that God possesses both the materials of this world and the hereafter. God is here and seer. Okay, so these verses, I mean, you know, when people talk about polygamy and how submission encourages polygamy, I mean, how Quran encourages polygamy, you know, it's actually the opposite, as we learn here in this surah, and it's actually being discouraged. And God is telling us that you can never be equitable in dealing with more than one wife. So you know, the other verse where God says, if you cannot be equitable, then you should be content with just one. And then here it says that you can never be equitable. So it's definitely encouraging you to not do polygamy, and you cannot have you know, multiple wives just for yourself, and then not being equitable with them. Obviously, these women are oppressed, where they can enjoy marriage with their spouse, nor can they marry anyone else. And I guess in such a situation, I mean that God says you should correct the situation, and then 130 says if the couple decides to part, then God will provide for each of them from His bounties. And God is letting us know that in the following verses, that everything in the heavens and the earth belongs to God. Everything that is, we crave for or we desire in this life, everything belongs to God in this life and in the hereafter. So really what we see here is, you seek, God's kingship, over you, and everything else will follow, like it says in the Bible. And so everything belongs to God. He controls everything. And, if you disbelieve, God doesn't need it, because He is the owner of everything, so whether you believe or not, it's not gonna hurt God in the least if anybody disbelieve. And everything in the heavens and the earth belongs to God. He is the only protector. If He wants, I mean, we're not, if it's not like, if we don't worship God, like somehow it will have an impact on God. I mean, God says that if He wills, He can annihilate you and substitute others in your place. And also, God here says, anyone who seeks the materials of this world should know that God possesses both the materials of this world and the hereafter. And I think that's also kind of going at that same point where, if you are seeking the materials of this world, well, God owns everything. And so if you seek God, God will provide for you, and all your needs will be met. But that doesn't. But your priority shouldn't be these materials. Your priority should be God. And as long as you make that priority, everything else will fall in place for you. Obviously, you'll work for it, but your life and your priorities will be set differently. And you will work around your Quran studies. You'll work around your Friday prayers. And your life will be prioritized based on your religion. Your religion will not be prioritized based on your life. So I'm going to continue reading verse 135. You shall not bear false witness. O you who believe, you shall be absolutely equitable and observe God when you serve as witnesses, even against yourselves, or your parents, or your relatives. Whether the accused is rich or poor, God takes care of both. Therefore, do not be biased by your personal wishes. If you deviate or disregard this commandment, then God is fully cognizant of everything you do. O you who believe, you shall believe in God and His messenger, and the scripture He has revealed through His messenger, and the scripture He has revealed before that. Anyone who refuses to believe in God and His angels and His scriptures and His messengers and the last day has indeed strayed far astray. Surely those who believe, then disbelieve, then believe, then disbelieve, then plunge deeper into disbelief, that God will not forgive them, nor will He guide them in any way. Inform the hypocrites that they have incurred painful retribution. They are the ones who ally themselves with the disbelievers instead of the believers. Are they seeking dignity with them? All dignity belongs with God alone. He has instructed you in the scripture that if you hear God's revelations being mocked and ridiculed, you shall not sit with them, unless they delve into another subject, Otherwise, you will be as guilty as they are. God will gather the hypocrites and the disbelievers together in hell. The hypocrites, they watch you and wait. If you attain victory from God, they say to you, were we not with you? But if the disbelievers get a turn, they say to them, did we not side with you and protect you from the believers? God will judge between you on the day of resurrection. God will never permit the disbelievers to prevail over the believers. The hypocrites think that they are deceiving God, but He's the one who leads them on. When they get up for the contact prayer salat, they get up lazily. That is because they only show off in front of the people. And rarely do they think about God. Rarely do they think of God. They waver in between, neither belonging to this group nor that group. Whomever God sends astray, you will never find a way to guide him. O you who believe, you shall not ally yourselves with the disbelievers instead of the believers. Do you wish to provide God with clear proof against you? They think they are believers. The hypocrites will be committed to the lowest pit of hell, and you will find no one to help them. Only those who repent, reform, hold fast to God, and devote their religion absolutely to God alone will be counted with the believers. God will bless the believers with a great recompense. What will God gain from punishing you if you became appreciative and believed? God is appreciative, omniscient. Okay. So the first verse, 135, says, "You shall not bear false witness." And obviously, God is encouraging us to be equitable and give the honest testimony, whether it's against our parents, against our siblings, our relatives. And whether the person's rich or poor, God says, "Don't worry." God is the one who takes care of both. So we have to be equitable. We have to be, not biased in any way because someone's our relative or a friend. We have to bear honest testimony, and this is obviously difficult, for people to do that. But this is what God's commandments are, and so a true believer will always observe these commandments, even if they have to testify against themselves. Now, this is really hard, definitely, but God willing, this works, and God guides the believers to observe these commandments. A lot of verses talk about hypocrites, these verses here that I just read, they talk about that too, a lot. And God gives us these descriptions of the hypocrites. So one, we don't become hypocrites. Two, we don't end up being with the hypocrites, because if we decide to do that, if we decide to befriend them and ally ourselves with them, we could become hypocrites too, because the hypocrites will rub off on each other, and that's why God tells us to force ourselves to be with the believers. So we influence each other, and we remind each other about God, and we encourage these traits in other people. That's how humans are. And so if you surround yourself with a group of people, and you spend enough time with them, you'll start becoming like them. And that's why we have to be aware of hypocrites. And it's an uncomfortable subject for some people, and they don't want to talk about hypocrites. Some people are in denial that nobody's a hypocrite, and that's too bad for them, because there are hypocrites. And as we see from the Quran, God says that the hypocrites sit amongst the believers, and they go to the lowest pit of hell because they sit among the believers, and you think they're your brothers and sisters, and then they listen to everything, and then they go around and they spread poisonous doubts and lies and whatnot, and that's the worst thing, because imagine how, like, if you think about damage, think about a company and say, you work for a company, and there's people outside the company, but they don't know all the ins and outs and all the secrets and whatnot, but then you have people within that are compromising information from the company, or things of that nature, and they know how the company works, they know the weak areas and things like that, and they're the ones who are the most dangerous. We really, I don't know if company is a great example, but like you could probably look at it in terms of maybe a battle or something, like you have people from the outside, and then you have people within that are part of the enemy, but they're within you, and those are the ones who are going to cause the most harm. And these are the people who came so close to the message, and then they decided to go astray. And in Surah 2, God describes their example, the allegory, as someone who lights a fire, and the fire begins to shed light around them. God takes away their light, leaving them in darkness, unable to see. So these people, at some point, they're on the path of submission. They say they believe and disbelieve, and they're on the path of submission, and they come across different tests, certain tests, and they drop out, they fail tests, and they disbelieve. Then they get some more tests, they believe, and then they end up plunging deeper into disbelief. And God says he will not forgive them, nor will he guide them in any way, because they decide to disbelieve. And God says about the hypocrites that they have incurred the most painful retribution. And God says, who are these people? These are people who decide to ally with the disbelievers instead of the believers. So, and then there are people that God says, are they seeking dignity with them? All dignity belongs with God alone. So if you some of them, they're hypocrites because they're not guided, and they just go by the physical appearance of success. So they see a group of people and they look like, they have a lot of power and a lot of wealth, comparatively speaking. And then they see a group of believers. I mean, obviously, their real strength is their faith. And I mean, they're happy and satisfied, but, they are a group of people who are guided by God. But the hypocrites will not see that. The hypocrites will see the outer appearance, and they look at the disbelievers, and the disbelievers appear to them as more successful and more powerful and probably even righteous, and they ally themselves with the disbelievers instead of the believers because of that. And God is asking a question that, are they seeking dignity with them? Because for them, the image of allying themselves with these people makes them feel more powerful and more successful, and they're seeking that dignity for themselves as well. And God says that all dignity belongs with God alone. This world is just a test, and these things are put in that place just to test these people. And also, verse 140 is letting us know that if you hear God's revelations being mocked and ridiculed, you shall not sit with such people unless they delve into another subject. So, it's a very practical verse. I mean, all verses are practical, really, but I mean, this happens like, you go somewhere and people are mocking God's revelations, and God says don't sit with them until they delve in another subject, because if we do sit with them, we're as guilty as they are. So it will help to remind these people that what they're doing is wrong. And God says until they delve in another subject. And about the hypocrites, it says they watch you and wait. If you attain a victory from God, they say, were we not with you? But if the disbelievers get a turn, they say to them, did we not side with you and protect you from the believers? God will judge them on the day of resurrection. God will never permit the disbelievers to prevail over the believers. Um, and so it looks like they're just going by the outer appearance. They're going to one group. Or if they see the believers becoming successful, then they slowly, then they immediately start to go towards the disbelievers. And when they see the disbelievers getting the success, and when they see the believers getting the success, they'll come to the believers, and it's really hard to understand hypocrites. But one other sign about hypocrites, and this is one of those things that we should evaluate ourselves, that we're not following those traits. And this verse says the hypocrites think they are deceiving God, but He's the one who leads them on. So God leads them on. Hypocrites are led on because of their disbelief, and God leads them on in that direction that they chose to follow. And God makes situations where they're led on to believe that they're righteous and they're believers. Actually, that's coming ahead. And so, but God says when they get up for their prayers, they get up lazily because they only show off in front of the people. If you're really praying, if you really worship God alone, doing your salat will not be a chore for you. It will be something that you want to do from the heart because you love God so much, and you love to nourish your soul. And when a believer prays, when a believer prays, it really nourishes his soul, right? But when a hypocrite is doing his prayer, he's just going through the motions, and nothing really is nothing really is happening internally that is growing his soul in any way. So obviously it's going to be a chore for him, and he's just doing it lazily because he's trying to show off in front of the people. And they rarely think about God, so your soul really grows when you think about God genuinely. And these hypocrites, obviously, because they're hypocrites, they rarely think about God. They're thinking about their work, there's what people think of them, and what are they going to have for dinner, and what's the next thing they're going to buy, and what they have to do afterwards, and all that kind of stuff. But the believers, obviously they're reverent and conscious during their contact prayers, think about God, they're eager to work righteous works, and that's how we should be. And hypocrites are people, it says, they waver in between, neither belonging to this group nor that group. So that's another sign of the hypocrites, that they waver between one group and the other. And God says that these are people that are astray, they're not guided, and that's why they do that. And God is letting us know in really strong words that people should not ally themselves. You should not ally yourselves with the disbelievers instead of the believers. Do you wish to provide clear proof against you? So people who decide to ally themselves with the disbelievers instead of the believers are providing a clear proof of their hypocrisy against their own selves. And God says, do not do that. God tells us that the hypocrites think that they are believers. Okay? So they don't think they're hypocrites. They think they're believers. In fact, I feel that they think they're better believers than anybody else, because they think everybody else is an idiot, because they're hypocrites. And God says they will be committed to the lowest pit of hell. They're the worst of the worst. If you think about the lowest rank, the worst, you can think of like pedophiles and serial killers and all the worst people on earth, right? But God says hypocrites are the worst, and they think that they're believers. So that's pretty profound. But God says only those who repent, reform, and devote their religion absolutely to God alone will be counted with the believers. God will bless the believers a great recompense. What will God gain from punishing you if you became appreciative and believed? God is appreciative, omniscient. So the criteria here is very, very simple it's very simple to say, but it's definitely a lot harder to follow through unless you're guided by God as a believer. Because, God says you have to devote your religion absolutely to God alone. So, when people, we have simpler examples of, people idolizing, other entities besides God, like the prophets and messengers and saints. But then also there's people that will listen to other people, and even if what they say goes against the Quran, they will still follow it, whether it's your scholars or Pope or even a friend or whatever, or a community or a group of people that you idolize. If you listen to them over God, and their religion is not absolutely devoted to God alone, but God says we have to do that. And in order for us to devote our religion to God alone, obviously the formula is that we worship God alone. We never idolize any other idols besides God. All our practices are devoted to God alone. Only practices we follow are what we find in the Quran. And we make God our God all the time. At least 51% of our day should be God should be on our mind. If there's anybody else on your mind, if it's your work, your family, your relatives or your friends, or something you want so much, then 51% of the time, if that's occupying your mind, then you're really making that thing or person your idol. And you shouldn't do that also in order to be devoted absolutely to God alone. And God says that he's not out there to want to punish us for nothing. God doesn't gain anything from punishing you. It's really for your own good. If you want to save yourself, you became appreciative and believed. God is appreciative. And if you believe, God will give the believers a great recompense as a reward for their righteousness. God willing, I'll continue reading Surah 4, verse 148. Do not use bad language. God does not like the utterance of bad language unless one is treated with gross injustice. God is hearer, knower. If you work righteousness, either declared or concealed, or pardon a transgression, God is pardoner, omnipotent. Okay. So I like to actually I'll read on a few more verses probably. You shall not make any distinction among God's messengers. Those who disbelieve in God and his messengers and seek to make distinction among God and his messengers, and say we believe in some and reject some, and wish to follow a path in between, they are the real disbelievers. We have prepared for the disbelievers a shameful retribution. As for those who believe in God and his messengers and make no distinction among them, he will grant them their recompense. God is forgiver, most merciful. Okay, so God willing, I'm going to stop here. And in verse 148, obviously, very important commandment. Any you live in, I guess, you see the same problem, excessive cursing. Even if it's not excessive, there's cursing everywhere. These days it's hard to find songs without cursing in them. They're all marked, but at least thankfully they're all marked explicit. But God is letting us know that we should not use bad language. Now, some people like to how do I say it? Some people like to find excuses to curse. So it's like, well, if you remind them, God says, do not use bad language, but then say, unless one is treated with gross injustice, and then everything is gross injustice. Everything can fall under the umbrella of gross injustice for them. But really, it's like when God says, do not beat your wife, the subtitle says, do not beat your wife. It's a prohibition. Don't do it. And here's another one: do not use bad language. So don't try to find ways around it. God is not like the utterance of bad language, and people use it a lot, and it's disgusting. It's gross, and obviously, naturally, God doesn't like it either, and that's why God makes our hearts not like it either, because God adorns righteousness in the hearts of believers. And obviously people who are doing that for whatever reason are not believers, because their hearts are not following, their hearts don't have the same feeling as what God wants us to have, and that's why they go around doing these things. Another thing is telling us that if you work righteousness, either declared or concealed, or pardon a transgression, God is pardoner omnipotent. Pardoning a transgression, forgiving, like letting go of people's wrongdoings. God says that that's a work of righteousness too. Like, somebody wrongs you and you pardon them. It counts as credit towards yourself because you let go of something. And that potentially hurts you as well, for your own happiness. So God says that, it's a good trait and it's a righteous trait. And it, whether you do things that are obvious or things that are hidden, like inside, your thoughts, God knows them, and he gives you credit based on your thoughts. So if something happens and you forgive someone, even if you don't say anything or don't do anything, God knows your thoughts, and you're getting credit, just by sitting there and thinking the right way. That's important too, because when we think things, our thoughts transform into actions. Our thoughts become who we are and how we act. So it naturally makes sense that we get held accountable for our thoughts. And if we get thoughts that are not righteous, we should backtrack and repent to God and start to think the right thoughts as well. God knows our innermost thoughts, and obviously he holds us responsible for them. So when we work righteousness, either declared or concealed, God knows them and provides his recompense. Also, another very important commandment for us is in verse 150, that we are not supposed to make any distinction among God and his messengers. And that's something that is so common, right? Because you see all these disbelievers, and they're also hypocrites, but they make distinction among God and messengers. Like, it's when it says that the hypocrites come to you, they say, we bear witness you're the messenger of God. God bears witness you're his messengers, and messenger and God bears witness that the hypocrites are liars. And the hypocrites, they clearly, and the idol worshippers, they clearly make distinction among God's messengers, whether it's Muhammad or Jesus, because they mention these messengers. Like, for traditional Muslims, a very good example, they add Muhammad's name next to their shahada, and they don't do that for other people. Or when you mention Muhammad, they give all these salutations to him, and when you mention other prophets, like, they don't say, like, hey, peace be upon them too, most of the time. Even if you mention God, a lot of them don't say it, and then Muhammad comes, or someone else who's their idol, like, you see the reverence coming out of there. God has given all these messengers, certain gifts and stuff like that, and miracles, but we're not supposed to make distinction among them. We cannot say, oh, I'm going to follow this messenger and this messenger, but this other messenger, like, say Muhammad or Rashad or Jesus, I'm not going to follow. I'm going to follow Muhammad, but maybe not Rashad or anything like that. God says they're all messengers, and you have to follow. If you're really following God, you'll follow whoever the messenger is, as long as he's a messenger. He's coming from God. You have to follow him. You're not following the messenger because of the messenger. You're following the messenger because of God. Your messenger could be Quran, right? Quran is a messenger, and Rashad is a messenger. Dr. Rashad Khalifa was a messenger, and but the thing is, if God is telling you, that's a good example. Let's say if God is telling you something in the Quran, and you're not following it, but if you hear it from the messenger, you insist on hearing it from the messenger, and then you will follow it. That might also be a bad thing, in my opinion. Not everything has to float through the messenger's mouth. If it's clearly stated in the Quran, itself, then you follow it. If it's by any messenger, we don't make distinction amongst them. That's a trait of the believers, and that's a commandment from God, not to make distinction among God's messengers. And God tells us that God says those who do that, they are the real disbelievers, and God has prepared for them a shameful retribution. But those who believe in God and his messengers and make no distinction among them, God says he will grant them their recompense. God is forgiver, most merciful. Okay, so God willing, I'm going to end here, and if you guys have questions and comments, we can follow with that. So we stopped at verse 152. Thank you.
Thanks, Solomon.
Masha Allah. Let me play something real quick.
Whether he or she is a believer or not. So the definition of a disbeliever is one who says he doesn't believe. That's a disbeliever. And the Quran writes about it in 2 verses. But a hypocrite is one who says that he or she is a believer when they are not believers. And so the Quran writes 13 verses about it. Because they are more damaging than the disbelievers. The disbeliever, you know the position. But the hypocrite is a person who claims to be a believer. What can you do?
Okay. The point I wanted to make there, he actually says it twice in another place too. He's like, the hypocrites are with you, and they're much more damaging because they're with you. And he says, what can you do? He said it twice in another one too. I think I think 44. And that's an interesting point because it's like, what can you do? They're in your community. I'd just like to hear some of you guys' thoughts about that.
Yeah, what can you do?
We all. Are you going to go into your community and start pointing at everybody that you think is a hypocrite and say you're a hypocrite? You have to get, So it's like it kind of informs us a little bit of that on how you're going to confront people, doesn't it? Or does it not? Yeah, that's what I want.
Well, there's different types of hypocrites too, right? So these types of people that are they're just like I mean, like when the hypocrites are there, like they sit amongst them, they sit amongst the believers, and they carry on, and they're doing their poisonous thing, whatever it is. But it's a process until sometimes, God allows them to be weeded out, as we see in the video of the conference, I suppose. But a lot of times there's nothing. Like you might know that there's something wrong with their submission, and you're observing them, but it's not reached at a point where you can do anything about it. So you're just hoping that, hey, maybe something will change. I don't know, like, it's a weird situation, but you can't really do anything about it at that time, and you're not supposed to.
Right.
If they're just sitting there and being quiet and doing their thing, I mean, there's not much you can really do. But let's say if there's a hypocrite who then starts to fight you on religion and starts to create trouble and everything, then you can confront those situations and address them according to what it is. But a lot of times, these people will just be there, and they're waiting for an opportunity, good or bad, and to respond, and you just can't do anything about it.
Yeah. I got another one I'll play real quick.
You can say, if you realize that you're mocking God and his revelations and his messengers, do not apologize. You have disbelieved after having believed. If you pardon some of you, we will punish others among you as a consequence of their transgression. The hypocrite men and the hypocrite women belong with each other.
Really choppy.
Okay. Is it? In other words, it's not even
like
worth
you're
it.
making a milkshake or something.
Oh, it's not me. It's the recording.
I know.
Is it not worth it?
Oh.
Yeah, it wasn't. No, if it's not worth it, just tell me it's not worth it. I mean, if you can't hear, I'll try it again. But it's not me. It's the recording.
Maybe the way you're positioning it to your phone or something. How you. No, it's just like a lot of men.
Okay. Anyway,
Like,
it was another good.
It's like you have the blender running.
Yeah, I do.
Well, you can tell us what he said. I mean, I suppose.
Yeah, it's essentially what he's saying. That they sit amongst you,
mm-hmm.
and that he says, as we grow, we're going to have more amongst us, and he said, you have to beware of that. He said, because they're going to be the nicest people in the world. They'll be with you. They'll be really nice, and they're sitting amongst you, and you have to be conscious of that fact. And he says, because they'll be with you, and then all of a sudden they'll stab you with some idea or something. And he says that they have ideas. They're with you, but they have ideas that cause doubts in the believers.
Exactly. Yeah.
That they have just other ideas, and they'll bring it out, and it causes a doubt within the believer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's Can I say something?
Yeah.
That's that kind of thing, that kind of warning that I saw, because I might have experienced this in my life before I came to be a religion. I was never in any religion, but when I got the Quran and I saw these kind of warnings from God, I was like, yeah, that's life even before religion. Like, even without religion, you got to worry about people like that. They get you to do things that get you in trouble, and then they're not going to be there to help you. Like, I was warned like, hey, you know, all these friends that are you think you're all buddy with them, and they're all on your side, and they're getting you to do bad things, and when you fall down, they're not going to be there for you. They're going to run. But they fight off everybody, you know, like they fight people just to keep you doing stupid things and make you go astray in your life. Like, you know, if you join these gangs, you hang out with these gang members, they're all going to be yes men. They're all gonna they're even gonna fight or argue with people as if they're your buddies, but your buddies are gonna let you down big time when you go to jail. But you know, I saw the same thing, the warning from God, but it's gonna be worse because you know those were warnings of, you know, when I was younger, choose my friends carefully and don't end up, you know, in prison or shot. And these are warnings from God telling, you know, choose your friends carefully, don't end up in hell. But it's the same thing.
Yep. Yep. That reminds me that in another Quran study, 33, I found it right here. It says he talks about how hypocrites avoid persecution. That if there's persecution going on, you probably won't find hypocrites.
Right. That's interesting.
Persecute? Really?
Yeah, that they don't like. There's no advantage. There's no good reason to be a hypocrite at that time because you know, what's the point? You know, you're.
Yeah.
But that doesn't. I'm sorry, but God says they're there, and God doesn't say that. He says they just try. They lie, and they say they're believers, and they're not. Doesn't say anything about any advantage.
He's saying if you're in a situation where you're being persecuted, right? I mean, you're one of these people, like, for example, circumcision. You know, people are being persecuted.
I
We can't hear you. You're so far away. Or something's going on.
Okay.
Yeah. What did you say?
Okay. Is that better?
Yes, much. Sure.
Okay. All right. I don't know. It's weird. Yeah, no, I was saying that what he's saying is like, you know, when you're in a situation where you're being persecuted, obviously that's you know, the saying that they say when the going gets tough, how does it go?
The going gets tough, the tough get oh, go ahead. Say it again. The going gets tough. What is it? The going gets tough. Somebody gets going. I don't know.
I know. Well, I think that's the wrong one.
Yeah.
The wrong one.
Yeah.
Not that one.
Yeah.
No. So yeah, you know, when it says hard times serve to expose the hypocrites, right? The verse.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that's a good one because you know when you go through hard times and you're being persecuted, obviously the hypocrites don't want to be a part of that because it's hard and there's nothing valuable for them, so why would they be a part of it? And because there's nothing for them to gain. I mean, they're only going for the apparent success. You know, if you're going to war, they don't want to be a part of it. You know, if you go to war and then when you get the spoils of war, then they want to be a part of it because now you have the spoils. And so that's kind of the mentality that I think the messenger is talking about too with the hypocrites, right? They when you're being persecuted and you have to fight for your belief and everything, I mean, obviously that's going to be something that hypocrite will not want to be a part of it because they don't see any apparent value for it, you know, because they don't really believe in God. They don't believe in the hereafter. And so they're just in it for the worldly gains, basically.
Right. Also, another thing I was about how there's believers and disbelievers. Mm-hmm. And then a subset of the disbelievers is the hypocrites. Mm-hmm. Now, what that makes me think of is, for example, the several people that were contemporaries of Dr. Khalifa were they were strivers, they were sincere, or they definitely don't seem like hypocrites. very active. They're there in the time of the persecution. When it's not popular, it's very there's a lot of persecution. And I was thinking that the thing that they are is they're doing idol worship. So if you're following your own opinion, you're amongst the believers, you're sincere, you're not avoiding persecution. In fact, you want to be part of it. However, you may have some idol worship that's going on, that you have your own opinion that you want to add to it. And that to me seems like a little bit separate category. You know, I'm talking like Suzanne and Suzanne in that, and Adib, that thing.
Well, I mean, that's virtually everyone. I mean, in terms of you know, idol worshippers are hypocrites too, because you know when the verse that says, you know, when the hypocrites come to you, they say, "We bear witness, you are the messenger of God." We're, you know, God bears witness, you are His messenger. He bears witness that the hypocrites are liars. So I mean, a hypocrite is also someone who you know, is saying they're a believer, but they're not, and or they have some idols basically. Yeah. And so, like the traditional Muslims, I mean, they say they're believers, but they have idols, and I think so. When you have people, whether your idol is your own ego, you know, that makes you a hypocrite, because you say you're a believer, but you're really not. You're actually a hypocrite.
Right. It's like in just in regular, normal, everyday life, when we use the word hypocrite, you know, usually it means, it kind of has a connotation that you're doing what you're saying what you don't do, or you know, that's the kind of thing. You say what you don't do. But I think it's a little bit broader in the context of the Quran's under the way it's used. Simply,
I mean, I've seen people that are with the messenger, and I don't count them as believers, you know, and I see them as hypocrites. Some people, and I think the messenger of the covenant at that time, I mean, at that time maybe they were sincere, you know, because the verse I read about that talked about they believe then disbelieve, then believe then disbelieve. You know, the verse I read, then plunge deeper into disbelief. So maybe during those times they were sincerely seeking the truth, and you know, they were sincerely following the path, and then maybe they got complacent or they failed certain tests. And you know, when like the other verse where God talks about taking away their light, as soon as the light begins to shed light around them. So maybe there are people that could, you know, start off like with the conviction, and then they end up, you know, going downhill after that. You know, I mean, that's how I look at people like that. You know, I mean, they went through stuff and they did stuff, and maybe their lives were going a certain way where, you know, maybe things were good and they were following God, or things were bad, they were following God. And when God changed the situation, you know, they kind of basically could go off track too. I mean, that's another possibility. Some of these people. But the verse I was referring to was the verse I read earlier about from Surah 4, verse 137. Surely those who believe then disbelieve, then believe then disbelieve, then plunge deeper into disbelief. God will not forgive them, nor will He guide them in any way. Inform the hypocrites they have incurred painful retribution.
Can I say something?
Sure.
You know, like, of course, he probably referred to them people as submitters, but being a submitter, Satan comes after people. So it's probably, you know, there's a possibility that Satan came after people, and there's consequences for violating all the rules. When you say you're a submitter, you got to obey what God gave you in the Quran, and maybe some of these people could have over the years violated some of the verses and compromised for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. Um,
Yeah, the thing I was just trying to point out is the different subtleties in the word of hypocrite. And I mean, because like, for example, with the Quran loners who they're not saying something that they don't believe. They're not doing something that they aren't saying. It's just they've taken the message and have defined it in a different way, and they're doing that, and that is a type of hypocrite. Just like the ayatollahs and mullahs, they're not doing something. Well, I guess if you say you're following the Quran and you believe something different like that, I guess that just makes you a hypocrite, because there you have it. You're not doing what you say, I guess, because you take part of it and leave it. I guess just talked myself into an answer there.
Yes, the footnote for 383 says they're out of the religion because they no longer believe in the Quran.
Yeah, there, yeah. Yep.
It's connected to having disbelieved after having believed, and he references one of those verses.
Right.
It's not really about. You could say it's about not believing in the messenger of the covenant, but it's not. It's in the footnote. He's saying it's actually about not believing the word of God. Like, it's the word of God, God's word, that told you. And you say you're a believer and you're a submitter, and here you are not believing the verse, so therefore you're not a believer that you say you are. Lip service doesn't count.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really interesting how these verses address current problems, and it's funny because if you're coming from Sunni Islam or Shia or traditional, the relevance is going to be based on like the verse that talks about Ashhadu an Muhammadan Rasulullah. But if you say that, then you're a hypocrite. That kind of a thing. But for the submitters that have been submitters for a while, or you're getting into the community, all of these verses seem to relate to the variations that you're confronted with within your actual group even more. And so sometimes I feel like a convenient way to not address the community issues you have about hypocrisy and that kind of a thing is to constantly talk about the traditional Muslims and those kinds of issues. I kind of feel like most of that is in the past, in a sense, compared to what's going on now. Anyway.
Can I say a comment about some verses? I mean, we were already talking about some other verses.
Sure. Yeah.
I took notes for the verses. Should I do one? Should I do them all, or should I just do one at a time?
However you want.
4:1. I was noticing at the beginning, 4:128 says, what was it? Divorce discourage, and we started on 129.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, 129. Polygamy discouraged, and you look at that before that, 128, divorce discouraged. See, interesting, like divorce discouraged, and then no. don't try to get around it. Polygamy discouraged too. It almost looks like they might try to. Oh, okay, I won't get divorced. I'll just get another couple more wives.
Right. Yeah, be a collector, right?
Collector. Well, in Edward's case, he's a collector. So.
Put him up on eBay later on.
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, God is basically telling you to be content with only one.
I am not putting my wife on eBay. Chizu. She's out there listening right now.
Yeah, you too.
Salãmun Alaykum, Chizu.
Too late, buddy. She's mad at you now for saying that.
Oh. Okay. I did it. You know,
have to hear a public apology.
Right. But 4137, a public apology. Oh, okay. Yeah, I publicly apologize to all women listening. It is women who are better souls than men. And yeah, so probably,
Usually,
God willing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
There are
Sure.
women that might be worse than men too. So
Yeah. Okay. So I was going to say 4137. Surely those who believe, then disbelieve, then believe, then disbelieve. That verse 4137. I mentioned that a couple weeks ago. How that is just. It also the messenger was talking about how that describes the process in how we can go back and forth. I'm not trying to give an excuse to like, hey, might as well just try something different now. I'm saying that it's the process of confronting your questions. You know, you it's like, wait, you have a doubt or you have a thing, some concept that it may take you out of belief, and yet as you're working through it, and then you can repent and you come back. I saw that in my own in myself. You know, God knows maybe I'm still doing that, and so God willing, we're all guided to a pure belief and a right understanding. You know, we're all in the darkness, being led to the light. We have to assume that we're in the dark, and we're trying to find the light. We found it. We want to apply the light. We want to shine it.
I got a comment.
Cool.
Does anybody else have a comment? I'll go ahead. Look at 16106, chapter 16, verse 106. The point of being what is it? Those who disbelieve in God after having acquired faith and then become fully content with their disbelief. So like, you know, believed and then disbelieve and then believe and then disbelieve and then, you know what, to say like, you know what, you know what, forget it. They're just content with it. They're not going to try to work it to work it out in their mind, to argue it out and say, you know what, no, I shouldn't, I got to change this. I got to try to understand this. They just said, you know what, I'm just going to, that's it. I'm done. I'm not, I don't believe in this. Whatever it is they like, they're satisfied. They're content with it.
Like her circumcision.
Right? Instead of arguing, like, you know what I mean? Instead of arguing with themselves, like, maybe I'm wrong, and be like, yeah, I'm right.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yes, and so there you have it. If you're believing something that's not in the Quran, you're suddenly not following the Quran, and therefore you're a hypocrite, and therefore, yeah, that's. I like how you tied that in.
It also goes with what the messenger was teaching us about arguing with ourselves. With that, you know, don't be content with it. Always give up opposition in your mind. Like go around with yourself. Don't be content with it. I don't know if he said that, but he did say to argue with, you know.
Well, you know, that's a really good point, because we're not messengers. We don't have God telling us directly. We're coming from darkness, and so we have to assume that we don't know completely the areas where we're in the dark.
Yeah. Plus, that other voice might not actually be you. might be devil's whisperer, you know, and they're trying to win you over, and you think it's you, and you just go along with it, and you're like, and then it is you. You've given in. Can I say something else? Like sorry guys, am I talking too much?
No. It's good. It's good.
I wanted to. This one is a little bit. If we look at 4:136, all you who believe, you shall believe in God and His messenger and Scripture He has revealed through His messenger, and the Scripture has revealed before that. Anyone who refuses to believe. Now I highlighted refuses. It's almost like it's a choice. It's not. A lot of people think like, I don't believe, therefore forget it. It's like they think it's a set in stone thing. Like, well, I can't be a believer. If I don't believe, but it's actually an option. It's actually a choice. You can make a concerted effort to try to understand and believe, because the belief that you think you have, that also has been a learned thing. You know, you came into this world knowing nothing, and whatever you think you believe is something that has been acquired through whatever events in your life. It's learned, and you can unlearn it. And so you try to understand and don't refuse to believe. But if you go to 10:100, 10 verse 100, Surah 10. Hold on, I'm going to it right now. It's amazing. When I saw this helped me a lot, because I was one of those people who had lost faith. But this verse made me think that faith could be worked on. You know, and who's better to work on it, but the Word of God is the best word to fight through whatever you had learned elsewhere. So I look at it, no soul can believe except in accordance with God's will, for He places a curse upon those who refuse to understand. It's like it's a choice here.
Good point.
You make the choice to try, and then God helps you. And what better way with His Word? This Word is what's going to purify you. It's going to get rid of all of that nonsense that you have learned. So so it's not set in stone. It can be changed.
It's a good point. In other words, you're saying that it takes active effort to not believe. It seems like
your belief is just based upon something you learned. So why can't you learn something new and then believe something else?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Good.
I believe this is that. I have learned this is that.
Yeah, I've actually faced that exact situation with trying to share the message with somebody. So he said in the end, even if it's 100% truth, I still am not interested. That was his answer. So
If you look at 101, Surah 10, verse 101, right after 100, He places all proofs and warnings that never help people who decided to disbelieve.
Wow.
Can you guys hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is it clear now?
Well, it's like you got a pillow in front of your, but not. It's loud enough. It's loud enough. It just has kind of a muffled quality to it.
Okay. Still like that?
Well, it's okay. It's not bad.
Okay.
I shouldn't say it's too bad. It's just not.
Okay.
It's not like a quality mic.
Okay. Okay, never mind. That's
No, it's fine. You know what? It just picks up a lot of the bass tones right now. It's good. It's just it's overpowered with bass on the EQ.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I'll pass for right now. Anyways.
Huh?
Anybody else has any comments? I see. I think is Pamela and them gone?
Why? What?
Why? Why what?
Why'd they
No.
leave? Pamela.
Salāmun Alaykum.
Salāmun Alaykum. Who's this?
This is Huda.
Oh, Salāmun Alaykum, Huda.
Salāmun Alaykum.
Alaykum assalam. Okay.
You
I
have red hair.
Oh, sorry?
You have red hair.
That's her avatar.
Well, it's the mustache too there, I think.
I didn't choose that. I didn't choose that.
No, I know. We're all we've all been subjected to strange looking characters.
Yes. I have a comment. Can I say a comment?
Please.
It's about verse 133. Yes. I think that this verse is a warning to you. If we look in the Quran, we know that God confirms
Your voice is breaking up.
Sorry?
You sound like Stephen Hawkins.
Could you read that again?
Okay.
One more time.
I see that this verse is a clear. Did you hear me clear?
No. No.
No. So the connection is low. Sorry.
We can hear you now.
We can hear you.
Keep trying. We want to hear you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I said that the verse is a clear warning to people. You know, and if we look at the whole Quran, we can know that God confirmed this, and God not only warned, but He already emulate after giving people many chances. You know, so as a result, people have not to take the mercy of God guaranteed, because we can see a clear example of people of Pharaoh and how God has emulated them in many verses in Quran. You see?
Yes.
Did you hear me?
Right,
Yeah.
we heard you.
That was great. So that was great.
Okay, that's my comment on this verse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm distracted by your voice. I didn't even listen. I didn't listen to what she said. I just listened to her voice.
Oh no, she said
voice.
Oh yeah, oh he's complimenting your voice. He's saying it's
Right.
Absolutely. So yeah, he's given us a fair warning, a big warning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Big warning.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, God can annihilate you. You could be in a very powerful position, and you think you have all this power, and God can annihilate anyone. I mean, so Pharaoh's example that she gave, I think, like he annihilated them, so he can annihilate all of us. I mean, none of us are gonna have our big mansions and tombs and whatnot, there till the end of the world. But you can see the people of Pharaoh. I mean, their remains are there for the end of until the end of the world. I mean, all those pyramids and everything are still there. Most likely, it'll be there until another few hundred years, until the world ends and God annihilated them.
Any other comment? Anything else if you want, Huda, please. At any time. I wanted to talk about something that Edward was talking about last week and today about when we come here, we don't know anything. And as he's right, it's interesting though, but we have something. There's a quality that we have. I mean, parents will know that when they have a child, that child, it has a personality, and it's recognizable very early on. And so we do bring something here, and one of the things we bring here are the qualities that God says that we have. That, you know, we're the ones who are the rebels. We're coming here with we may not know the surroundings and how to know how to use the language and how to use our bodies correctly, but we have something that's been driving us. We have a bent, if you could say. And God willing, we can change it. Or God will change it in us. Okay.
All right. So anybody else has any other comments? Anyone has any comments? Any questions? Any off-topic questions?
I have some comment.
Okay.
I have 3 more verses to comment on, God willing.
Sure, Edward's on a roll here today.
I'm on a roll. God willing. 4130 dignity, seeking dignity with the people. Did you guys look up dignity? When I highlighted what verse is that? 131. I highlighted the word dignity. What verse was it? Come on. Yeah, it is 130. What? I'm lost. What verse is it? Seeking dignity.
Anyone seeking dignity. Yeah, that is anyone seeking dignity is
139.
139.
I wrote the wrong verse number on my notes. So I highlighted dignity and I did search Google, and the weirdest answer came up, man, on the right side. It said, dignity is the right of a person to be valued and respected for their own sake. That was on the right side. I don't know what that link is, but...
Yeah, dignity, the state or quality of being worthy of honor or respect. And they're seeking respect.
Right of a person value, respected for their own sake, and to be treated. Wow. Like, to want people to
respect you.
Yeah, so oh my God, allying with disbelievers so that they see you that way. They have high regard for you.
Right.
But that's something we should want from God more than from the people.
Right. Yeah.
We
Yeah. I
want
mean,
God
you see
to
people.
look at.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You see people. You know, you think they're more influential, they're wealthier, they're more powerful, they're more respected, and you want to be with them, and you want to be like them, and you want to be a part of them. You know, we see that. You know, people joining them because they want to be respected too, and revered.
You know, I think that definition had subtly different understanding than what the Quran is saying in these verses about dignity, because there's like a low point, like everyone deserves a certain amount of treatment. In other words, Well, let's start at the bottom. If they're killed in war, do you disfigure them? Do you that kind of a thing? And if say if they're not fighting you, there's a bottom. It's about your behavior, how you treat every human being. Is deserved of a certain level of treatment for your sake, as how you treat people too, as well as what they believe. It's like that's kind of what I thought that definition was talking about. It's kind of like the minimum that everyone deserves a certain level. Like you can't treat people like they're your belongings, like they're your slave. We say no, slavery's not okay.
Okay, yeah, I think
amount of dignity, that type of understanding. And what the Quran is here, these verses, it's a little different than that.
Yeah, there's like a few different meanings, so that was one of them, but like there says a high or honorable rank or position.
Yeah.
Right. Honor, glory, greatness, prominence, prestige. So there are people that are looking for that.
Yeah.
Loftiness, exaltedness, lordiness, impressiveness, grandeur, magnificence.
Well, what Jeff was talking about, I mean, it's more like a humanity. Everybody deserves to have rights, human rights.
Yeah.
That's not the same as, I mean, we can look at the definition of words. I was thinking that you want God to look at you this way, not the people.
Yeah, exactly.
You want God to look at you and say, "Oh, what a great person! What a
yeah."
For God to respect you, and like the way He says nice things about the messengers and prophets in the Quran.
Yep. It kind of goes with the ranks that God gives people. Here, it's kind of like he gives dignity. It's almost like the people who denied the messenger of the covenant because they didn't think he deserved to be in that position because he wasn't from Al-Azhar.
So I got 2 more verses. Are you guys? Should I wait?
No.
I'll do the easy one first. Getting up lazily for 142. I think that has to do with we shouldn't confuse being tired from maybe going to sleep late or exhausted from work or only had a couple hours sleep or whatever. We shouldn't confuse that lazy as being lazy. That's just tired and exhausted with somebody who's lazy because they just don't care. They're really not enthusiastic. They're not into it. They really don't believe. So they're not into it. And so when they're around people, it's like they're doing something that they're really not into. And but they don't want the other people to see that they actually don't. They have no enthusiasm. They're not in.
Yeah, that's a good way. Bringing in the word enthusiasm there is a useful way to look at that. Good point.
What is it? Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was agreeing. I just was complimenting your input.
And then I'll say the last one, and this is the last of my notes. And 141, I term this as playing for both teams. And they always want to be on the winning side, but and then I wrote down here like how they easily turn their back on the losing side after pretending to be with them and pretending to be their family and united and they're loving them, and then when the other side wins, they're like, "Oh yeah, we're with you." Yeah, but those people you said you were with them, and now you just like dump them. When they're down, you kick them when they're down. Like what a...
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't say I'm dumb.
Yeah, that too. only because of God's guidance can I not be dumb.
You know, that 4143 reminds me of that Abdullah Arik article on circumcision. And if you've ever read it in the it's one of the submitters' perspectives after the messenger. Maybe 2006 comes to mind. I don't know if I'm right, or maybe anyway. He wrote this article
1996, I think.
Oh, 96. Okay. And it seems to set the stage for future understandings about that issue because he took literally neither belonging to this group nor that group and saying that's a good way to be. It was almost advocating not making an understanding on this issue. It was, that's the way I look at it. Now, I look at it in retrospect to all of the work that we did to understand our rights. And so from a perspective of having really examined a process by which we can know what our rights are, it really showed to be very wavery, very wishy-washy from that perspective. And anyway, I just want to say that.
Right, yeah.
And also on the hypocrite, we were talking about the definition of a hypocrite, and basically, if you believe other than the Quran, that's a type of hypocrisy, right? It's a disbelief, type of disbelief, and so it's very ominous to see how easily adding that practice suddenly, instantly, all the work you've done, all the wonderful understandings, you know, everything about the messenger's message on top of, and knowing the Quran and how he explained it. And then you add a simple thing like that, seemingly, and out. That's it. It just, you've just added something. And like that Quran, Hadith, and Islam says, it really points out well that when you add anything, even the slightest, it incurs severe retribution. So whether you call it disbelief or hypocrisy, it's all a subset of disbeliever, and it's not good.
Well, Nidut's not on today, so that's why we feel the silence too.
Yeah. You know, I'm seeing it here at 4146, and devote their religion absolutely to God alone. And it reminds me of the 37:74 and the four verses in 74. You know, there's that phrase right there. You know what I'm talking about? In 37:74, it says, oops. Only God's servants who are absolutely devoted to Him alone. And that was in like you were saying last night, Solomon, that that has the. Could you repeat your understanding on that? That was really good.
My understanding, or you mean
Oh no, the facts. The
Oh
facts
yeah.
about the 4 verses and how they're all have 19 letters in them, and other information you had on that.
Yeah. So that was only God's servants who are absolutely devoted to Him alone are saved, right?
Yeah.
So the Arabic letter, the Arabic expression for that um, is composed of 19 Arabic letters. And then if you also look at the total geometrical value of that whole expression, that's also a multiple of 19.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh okay. So you add up the natural values, right?
Yeah.
I see.
Talking about Surah 37, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
37,
Yeah.
verse 74,
Yeah.
and the other one.
And other verses. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually okay. So it says the same exact thing in Arabic in Surah 37,
Yeah.
40, 74, 128, and 160. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was pointing out is how it's very similar in that verse that we just read today. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for something.
Yeah. Yeah, only those who are only those who devote their religion absolutely to God alone
Yeah.
will be counted with the believers. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I think of in about when they get up lazily, when they get up for the contact prayers, they get up lazily. And sometimes when you're doing your contact prayer, your mind can wander. And I accuse myself of being lazy in those times when I force my mind, when I find myself not reflecting on God in those moments, I don't know if that's correct, but um, it seems it's if you not force your mind to stay focused on a remembrance of God during your salat. For me, I don't know. I don't like it when it happened after that. I wish that I wish my mind was more uh, focused. So 4142 kind of reminds me of me in those circumstances.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like you don't really get the full benefit of your worship. You just basically waste time, and sometimes you could do your contact prayer, for example, and you're so distracted during your prayer that it ends up being taking you in the negative.
Wow.
Instead of positive. Imagine that.
Wow. Give me an example of that. That's good. Let's talk. That's a good one to talk about because we all deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're doing your prayer, you're not thinking about God. You're being heedless in your contact prayer.
Yeah, but we'll show
that's going against God's commandments. Yep. Because your mind's preoccupied with something else. I mean, you're required to make God your God 51% of the day,
right?
And you're not doing that, and then you're doing your prayer. I mean, that's the most important objective of your contact prayer, is to remember God.
Yep.
And if you're really rarely thinking about God, then you're really neglecting your soul. And you know, you're basically your prayer becomes a negative thing because now you're just disobeying God.
All right.
Yeah.
That was what I was wondering. How does it come negative? It was because of
Mhm.
disobedience, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, it could be like, you know, you're idolizing whatever it is, and you know, you're supposed to think about God.
So let me ask you this: in prayer, maybe this would be a good question for anybody. When when I think about God in prayer, I try to not anthropomorphize God in the sense of hands holding the whole universe is in his hand, you know, but I try to envision, for me, I look at, I don't know, I try to wonder what would be a good vision in my head to hold fast to. What do you guys do in your, when you are in your salat and you are forcing yourself to focus on God, what vision comes to your head?
That's a good question. I'll let someone else answer that.
How about Huda?
Well, I think about, I'm not Buddha, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I think about that this is something decreed by God, and this prayer is special. I think about everything that God said about contact birth. Whether I feel something or not, I try to think about that. Like, this is contact with God.
Mhm. Yeah, for
Special.
me, I try to think about what I'm saying about God, and that's mainly what I'm thinking about. And then I I just think about God's presence, and like I don't have any specific vision of how God looks like or what he's how he's you know, in respect to the universe, but I think about God like, you know, I'm standing in front of him, and I just imagine his presence being everywhere, and that's it. Yeah.
Hmm.
How about you, how are you, Adi?
Thinks about tobacco.
No, don't do.
No, I mean,
Don't. It's just, for me, I'm kind of a very visual kind of person in my mind. Visualization is kind of hard to separate from comprehension. And so, it was just, I liked what Solomon said. He just tries to imagine presence. Is that what you were saying too, Edward? Too, or you're thinking about what he said, what you're supposed to think about, but a vision doesn't come to your mind, or you know what I'm saying?
No, I try not to get distracted by my own thoughts, my own expectations. So I like what you mentioned that Rashad said in the video. Don't let Satan dupe you. Don't let him distract you while you're doing your prayers with these thoughts that, oh, I'm not reverent.
You're right, right.
I like to think I'm doing it. I'm doing what God said. I'm making the willful thing, you know, making the right decision.
Right.
Whether I feel anything or not. Maybe that's a part of the thing, is that you might not actually feel it. And I think Rashad mentioned that too. Oh, sorry, I'm playing with.
Salāmun Alaykum. Seeing we're in prayer, I do have a little question about that.
Oh, you're still here.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've been always been here.
All
Um,
right.
Masha
um,
Allah.
so I read somewhere that the reason why we say, and I might forget where I read it or saw it, but the reason we say Salam Alaikum on both sides after prayer is because we're saying it to the angels. So I was asked a question: if Quran is fully detailed, where can I find that in the Quran?
Well, I mean,
Well,
that's part of the contact prayer, the details of the contact prayer, right?
no. Well, on your it says, doesn't the Quran say on your right and your left you have giant angels? Or yeah, the angels doesn't it say.
Well, you have recording angels. Yeah, it says you have angels recording one on your right and your left.
Yeah, that's right.
Two angels are with them recording.
Yep.
I'm not sure if I saw a video. Did Rashad cover the subject?
Not in context of the prayer, he didn't, um, but the part about the angels is actually in the verse. It says
Yeah.
two recording. He doesn't do anything without two. If you search for two recording angels,
Yeah.
That
you'll
part,
see it.
that part I'm aware of, but it's the part when we say Salam Alaikum on both
Oh
sides.
yeah, I don't think he says that. Yeah,
Okay.
but it says
Okay.
two recording angels that right and left are constantly recording.
Okay.
So
Oh,
In Surah 50, verse 17.
we're saying Salam Alaikum to the angels.
that's what I always thought. That's why we did it.
Yeah, I don't think I didn't hear it from the Messenger of the Covenant in the anywhere.
It's like, when you introduce someone to Quran alone, God alone, they come with a million questions. And so those were one of my questions. Oh, and I do want to I do want to ask about one particular verse, 7 and 27. Can we do that? Although we didn't talk about that today.
Sure, we can ask.
Okay. So
Problem.
I will read it. Let's see, confusion, God, from Satan rejected. 7:27. O children of Adam, do not let the devil dupe you as he did when he caused the eviction of your parents from paradise and the removal of their garments to expose their bodies. He in his track sees you while you do not see them. We support the devils as companion to those who do not believe. We appointed the devil as companion to those who do not believe. So actually, that's the question I have, the last verse. Um, I know we already have a jinn with us constantly. So when we disbelieve, does that mean we have more devils of companion? Hello?
Sorry. No, I'm saying what that means is that um sorry, I was talking and I was on mute trying to answer your question. So, no, what it means is that we all come with companions. We all have a jinn with us, but God knows which one of us are believing souls and which one of us are destined for hell, and God has paired our companions accordingly. And so, for those people who are worthy to be saved, like, for example, people like Abraham, God gave him a different companion than the companion that, let's say, Pharaoh might have, and it's like, there's devils among the humans too, So the thing is, but there's good humans, and it's the same thing with the jinns too. So people who are, going to hell and who are, destined for that type of a destiny, those are people who are paired with the devils as their companions. But other people will have jinns, but they're not necessarily devils. Devil, coming from evil, basically. The devil doesn't necessarily mean a jinn. but their devil companions are basically the jinns that are destined for hell.
Masha Allah.
Salman,
So,
you mentioned that devil not necessarily mean jinn. Is that what you
What
just
they
said?
mean.
yeah, because there's also another verse. If you search for the word devil, it's in the surah. Whispers. Hold on. It is
Well,
further.
Nas talks about the sneaky whispers who are there, whether they're jinns or people. That's
Yeah. Hold on.
Is it
Yeah.
214?
Yeah, actually, if you look at Surah 6, verse 112, it says, "We have permitted hadith and sunnah fabrications by the Prophet's enemies." It says, "We have permitted the enemies of every prophet, human and jinn devils, to inspire in each other fancy words." So there's, well, I guess you could look at that both ways.
Yeah, I would think that maybe, as you mentioned, like as human, right? We have good who are good and who
Mhm.
are not so good, right? So
Yeah.
probably for jinn would be the same way. You have jinn, and you have also
Mhm.
jinn devil, right? Who are
Right.
always wicked. I guess maybe that's
Mhm.
how we can say it, because there's a lot of verses. It talks about purely devils, right? And the assumption
Right.
would be probably the jinn devil.
Right.
Yeah.
Mashallah, thank you. We were kind of seeing it that way, but we weren't like 100% sure. So we wanted to,
Mhm.
get an opinion. Thank you.
Sure. Mashallah.
on
And
that.
inshallah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No,
Go
it's
ahead.
fine.
No, please, no.
No, I was I was saying good luck with that. They have lots of questions, like
Oh yeah,
for the from the people, and
right.
hopefully they'll get answered for.
I was just going to add to answer my part of my question about what it goes in your mind, if there was a vision in your mind when you're doing prayer. I just wanted to just read this from Principles of Contact Prayer, and at one point he says, "And this completes the dawn prayer. This is the original contact salat prayer as observed by the Prophet Muhammad. And it came to us all the way from Abraham exactly this way." And you notice in my prayer, I didn't look around. I didn't laugh. I was not distracted. I concentrated on communicating with my Creator. So that's what he said regarding that.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. Okay, so this is in the Principles of Contact Prayer, and so this I think is after the dawn prayer, and I'll quote right here. "And this completes the dawn prayer. This is the original contact salat prayer as observed by the Prophet Muhammad, and it came to us all the way from Abraham exactly this way. And you notice in my prayer, I didn't look around. I didn't laugh. I was not distracted. I concentrated on communicating with my Creator."
Of course.
Yeah. That brings me to a kind of an off-topic subject, and that is the when we do dhikr in a community and we're doing the chanting, kind of the remembrance of God. And when I listened to the way the messenger showed us how to do it, to me, I see that there's a quality of the chanting that I think is omitted oftentimes. And what I'm talking about is that it's just simply, he talks about imagining your soul leaving your body and going up to heaven and being out there. And that, how do you do that if you're distracted with the sing song aspect of the the vicar?
Trying to harmonize.
Yeah, right. And well, not just that. Sometimes they do it in a way where it's like a song rather than just a chant.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're slowly building, and you're leaving your body, and you're slowly expanding, and it's getting and then he goes slower, and you just repeating over and over, and it's a different thing than what I've experienced so far out there.
Yeah, I agree. Like I've seen that the zikr that the Messenger of the Covenant is recorded to be doing in the studies is a lot simpler. It's a lot easier to sing to too. Like you don't have to hit those high notes and low notes, and it's like very sort of monotonous in a way where the focus is more on the not on the song, but it's more on the words. And when you have there's a lot fewer words, there's the variation in the words, like like if he says Allahu Akbar, for example, it's only like Allahu Akbar la ilaha illallah, and it's easy for your mind to follow. But like if you add a whole bunch in there, Allahu Akbar la ilaha illallah subhanallah alhamdulillah, and you have to repeat it 5 times, you say this, and then the 6th time is a different variation, and then your brain cannot really think about them, and your brain is just gonna follow the pattern, and it's just thinking about, most likely it's not going to be able to focus on any of God's attributes in that way, and it just becomes a song, and people sing into it, but obviously it loses its meaning there when it becomes like that, because then it's not like we're chanting or meditating. We're not meditating and reflecting on God's name anymore. We're just singing. I mean, which you could still do it, but you're not going to have the same level of focus. And the more the Messenger of the Covenant in that audio, he says, the more you focus, the more you grow.
Yeah.
So if you're meditating and you're not focusing, you're not growing.
Right. And how do you imagine your body, your soul leaving your body, and how can you lose yourself in it? If anybody, I've witnessed the whirling dervishes and that kind of those types of events, like that's done in the Turkish, some of those Sufi sects that practice that type of meditation. I'm not advocating that kind of thing, but there's elements within that they understand. And I think to myself, as the consolidating messenger, that the consolidating messenger knew the aspects of these things that were effective, and it's not even unique to Islam. You can find this type of remembrance in even some forms of Buddhism. There's that are out there in the chanting. So it's not a unique understanding.
Yeah. I think that for me, I think that the spirituality is somewhat not there right now among people. And I mean, for the Master of the Covenant himself, like obviously, he came from a Suf, and his father was well, forget about that. But anyways, I mean, I think if we just follow, that same sort of an example, I think there's really a lot of value to that. But there's no set way for you to meditate on God, and it doesn't have to be whatever works for you. Is good. But but I think it does make sense when we do it as a group, when there's other people involved. You want to do it in the way that is the best and helps people the most. And I certainly think that, you know, doing more zikr where you're commemorating God, you know, in these smaller, simpler ways is a lot more helpful than when you have like a professional singer, you know, singing all these notes,
Yep.
then you know you having to follow them.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
I'm kind of interested that Jeff brought that up because I've been thinking, I thought about it for a long time and I didn't know how to say anything. But the
Right.
words Jeff just used, he calls sing-songy. That kind of
Disney.
no, but those words actually made sense. It's kind of, yeah, this is just sing-songy, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Sing-songy, yeah.
Yeah.
But like you said, when you look at the Night of Destiny zikr that Rashad, that they have a recording of,
Yeah.
and how
Yeah,
he
it's very
involved,
spiritual. Yeah.
how he involved, like, it's not just, he's actually getting people to think. It's like you're using your will to your desire and your will
Yeah.
to focus your attention and your actions. It's like a concerted effort. Like, I'm gonna actually focus. Meditation means like you think about something and you make an effort to focus on that thing. He's doing it with words and mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's better to do it that way. You know, like I think what Jeff has seen is, you know, like in some of our studies, you know, they just put on an audio for 15 minutes of some other person doing singing, where the person's a singer, and but what I think what we should do is if we're gonna meditate, like we should we should do our own session where, you know, we can just sort of guide ourselves through the meditation, God willing, where, you know, we chant God's attributes, you know, in repetition and in those like simpler tones, so we can all focus. It's sort of more meaningful, and also because it's usually it's like if you want to do it, like there has to be some variation too for your mind, you know, because if you keep doing the same thing like over and over and over, at some point, eventually your brain kind of will lose the focus, you know, a little bit. So you have to change it up to here and there. Anyways.
Yeah. The other thing is that it's amazing how Arabic works on the tongue, and just compare it like with German or English. It's such a flowing language. So you can just say Allah, 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 and your mouth barely moves. There's just hardly nothing there. Even you say Subhanallah, it's just so easy how it flows from the tongue out of the mouth. It's not harsh. It's I find it wonderful how it lends itself to the chanting as well. Not to say that you have to do it in Arabic. I'm just saying that it just so happens that it is such a an easy language on the tongue.
I think you were, when you said like other, another thing I hate to, not that I hate to try to, I think the way, I have to go back to this again. This is not idolatry, by the way, but the way he did that zikr, that one zikr, I think like that can have like people who are not submitters, or they think they might not like Quran or Islam, and they might think they're part of another type of religion. They would actually find that intriguing, the way he did it, because it has other flavors. You know, it kind of crosses borders, like to the people who like into other things. I guess like Sufi.
Yeah,
I think you were talking about like the whirling dervishes. Were you talking about those guys?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. See, that's within the Sufi sect, those types, and also from the Buddhist. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo it's a saying that they would say.
Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge. Yeah.
That kind of a thing. Yeah.
I speak for a minute because I have to go. Hello?
Hello?
You can speak, but you can't go.
I actually, yeah, I have guests coming over, so I have to go. So the question was 284. 284. So if you look up the word shed blood, let me look up the word shed blood. Shed blood means to be injured or killed. So in 284, I see refuge in God from Satan to reject us. 284. We made a covenant with you that you shall not shed your blood, nor shall you evict each other from your homes. You agree and bore witness. So when it says you shall not shed your blood, I don't totally understand. I would understand if it says you shall not shed blood, but it says you shall not shed your blood.
Well, I think it could mean like the human blood. You should not shed your blood.
Can you read that in the Arabic, just to compare that? Not that it's not clear. It's just is that a capability you have? Anybody?
I don't speak Arabic.
Oh, okay. I was just curious.
That was actually part of the covenant made with the children of Israel. So that's 283. We made a covenant with the children of Israel. You shall not worship except God. You shall honor your parents, the relative, the orphan, the poor. You shall treat the people amicably. You shall observe the contact prayer and give the obligatory charity. But you turned away, except a few of you, and you became averse. And then the next verse went on to say that we made a covenant with you. You shall not shed your blood.
Right. So I think
it means you should not kill.
Yeah. Also, another thing is that it's talking to the children of Israel, right? So they're all part of the same progeny too. So it's the same blood. They're part of the same parents. So they're killing each other. They're shedding their own blood. When you say like you turn against your own blood, when you say that, you don't literally turn against your own blood. You probably turn against someone else in your family. Right?
But Solomon, it can't mean that, because that if it meant that, then it would mean like, but then you could kill other people. Just don't kill each other.
No, but no.
It has to mean don't kill anybody.
Well, of course, you don't kill anybody. But I'm saying your blood can mean different things. So, I mean, even if my first thing I said was human blood, because obviously we were all part of the same Adam and Eve, right? So we all come from the same. So you shall not shed your blood. I mean, if you look at it in the big picture, it's talking about your blood. Like we're all humans, right? So we all have the same like human blood. Of course, you're A positive and B positive. Doesn't mean
so I can shed your blood then, because you're.
That doesn't mean you can only kill people who are B positive.
So just a quick question. That could have nothing to do with circumcision, right?
Oh.
Well, I mean, no, I don't know.
I don't think so, but nice try. We want to condemn them any way we can. We find any verse. Yeah.
Well, but it is harming other people. So
yeah, it is.
You could look at it that way too. Yeah.
It's it's like when the police write you up and they just like, well, you did this and you also did this. Another.
Mm-hmm. But you're harming another person. Yeah, of course, you're injuring them.
Yeah, I agree. Send them to hell.
Okay, so thanks so much, Masha Allah.
Kidding. Sorry.
I will be going now. Great Quran study. Thanks again.
Okay, Salãmun Alaykum. Alhamdulillah.
Assalamualaikum.
So,
Hey, did
so
you guys guy
go ahead.
from Kurdistan? Hello? Oh. Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
If you go to YouTube, there's a guy who posted a comment. He's in Kurdistan.
Uh-huh.
And he said, Salam alaikum. He said hello to everybody.
Salāmun Alaykum to those in Kurdistan.
He said his name Abdul Salam Tekchi.
Interesting. Kurdistan.
But then he said, I miss Rashad Khalifa. Oops.
Ooh.
You missed
Salam Abdul.
Okay.
Let's say hello to Robert Tilford. Salam alaikum, Robert, if he's on there, God willing.
Salāmun Alaykum.
Say hello to Toby.
Hello, Abdul brothers.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, Abdul.
Hello.
Yeah. Abdullah.
That reminds me, let's say salam to Tizu too.
Anyway, I have a note about Satan, human, and jinns. In here, I found some article that said Satan takes shelter in the mind of human to influence any behavior that distracted from the path of God. After Satan was able to master the human mind and thought with the power of his mind, then comes the power of the mind as a jinn. Thus, Satan can be tangible through the power of human mind and is called the jinn. Any comment about this?
Say that again?
Satan takes shelter in the mind of human to influence any behavior that distracted from the path of God. After Satan was able to master the human mind and thought with the power of his mind, then comes the power of the mind as a jinn. Thus, Satan can be tangible through the power of human mind and is called the jinn.
Well, that's not really how the Quran describes it.
Yeah, jinns are separate entities. They were souls just like us. So they're not actually us. They are an actual other soul. If you look at the introduction, like we were all souls, and then they became jinns, we became humans. Mm-hmm. It seems like what you read, the guy is thinking that the jinn is another part of us. Whoever wrote that. Am I wrong?
Oh, I'm just asking.
Wait, is that your writing? Sorry.
That's me who is writing that.
Oh, good. Sorry, man. Oh, well, at least I didn't say whoever the idiot who wrote that doesn't know anything. I'm sorry, man.
Well, it's been 10 years ago I wrote about this because someone ever see the jinns. Someone saw the jinns like that. That's why I said that. The Satan can be tangible to the power of human mind. So, the jinns is actually the jinn they saw is the human itself, the human's mind.
So yeah, there was a psychological understanding of Quran that was promoted, where your where let's see, so that you have a subconscious or some kind of a your mind becomes what you have, an ego and an id. That, I think, the id kind of a thing, and that kind of it doesn't separate like there's two beings with wills of their own. It's almost like it's a component of you. They make it in psychology it's a component of you actually who you are. Where it seems like the way that it was explained to us is that we have actual separate beings residing in the same body, and there's a conversation going on back and forth between them. That's the way I take it.
Not
Because
seems
I
like
found in because I found in 6:112, we have permitted the enemies of every prophet, human and jinn devils, to inspire in each other fancy words in order to deceive. Had your Lord willed, they would not have done it. You shall disregard them and their fabrications. That's what I thought about these verses.
Well, what seemed to come up in our conversation was whether a human is a devil as well. I'm going to just say, the way I've always read that, I've always read it as human devils as well as jinn devils. It never occurred to me that was we have permitted enemies of every prophet, the humans and the jinn devils. Yeah, it just seems like it could have, if that was the way it was meant, it would have just said the humans and the jinns. But the way I always thought it meant human devils, but I could be wrong.
That's why I said that, to inspire in each other fancy words in order to deceive. I put a line to inspire.
What's your significance? How does that inform us of whether a human can be a devil or not? What is to inspire? What are you saying?
Yeah, I think that's the power of the human minds when they already polluted with the Satan's words.
Yeah.
And then it's big. And if someone can sow the jinns or something, that's what I call it's the jinn.
It's interesting. You just said something really interesting. So I just thought of myself, okay, what is it that categorizes somebody as a jinn? What makes you a jinn? And it's your belief that you can do something other than God, that you have power, that God needs something besides, or God doesn't do everything himself, that you can be a God beside God. That is a quality of a jinn, of a devil. And so you were just saying that when the human is convinced of that fact, they would have that same quality of a jinn that's a devil. So interesting. Anyway, did that make any sense?
Yeah. I just remember this note when Pamela talking about the human jinn and human jinn devils, and
yeah. Yeah.
I just remember this note, and then I'm searching in my email because I always wrote something and then send email to myself.
Can I interject something?
It's September 16, 2011. This note.
Can I interject?
Okay, please.
When it comes about the, can people be, like devils? I think that we always have a choice in every decision that we make, and I've known people in my life, and I've seen it. I can look at their entire life, and you see that they always choose the evil way or the dark way. And you do that enough, and that's who you choose, because we can always choose between good and evil, good deeds and evil deeds. And I've seen people where it is consistently, no matter what it is, they are constantly choosing the evil way, so that that's what their soul becomes. It becomes permeated with this darkness, and they create such a disaster on earth, you know. So yeah, I think that people can, it's not that they actually become like devils, but they have absolutely chosen Satan as the one they worship, because it's easier, it's more enticing, and they enjoy. There are people, you know, the definition of evil is not one who does evil, it's one who enjoys evil, and they enjoy it. They enjoy causing pain, they enjoy causing disaster, they enjoy causing havoc on people's lives. And I think if every one of us looks somewhere, even if we don't know them, we've heard about it.
Exactly. You know, it's, to me, I was just wondering, what is it that makes a devil? At what point what is the quality of a devil? A devil, not, I mean, because see, we have in our culture, we have this creature that has maybe hoofed feet and horns on his head, and he, you know, these kind of things. So,
and he's red. He's red.
Oh yeah, he's red, and yeah, it's
black circles around his eyes.
Yeah, and he always has a goatee, also, I think. so yeah, it's like, but what actually is God telling us is the what makes a devil a devil? And to me, from what I understand, it's idolatry and lies is what idolatry and lies, and I'm not quite sure. What?
Solomon has a goatee.
I don't have a goatee, I have a beard.
Oh, you're bigger. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you, Jeff.
No, I was done. I actually finished my, yeah.
I'm not ready there.
I also think that it's not just about that. I think it's also about people who choose arrogance, choose pride, treat people as if they're subhuman. You know, all of these things allow people like that to
I think Jeff, I think she's gone.
No, he's out.
She's out. Oh, she's back. Sorry, Daniel, go ahead. You got this. You got disconnected.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. We heard you said they think there's subhuman and that we lost you.
Right. Oh, okay. And I was saying that I saw a special on Jeffrey Dahmer and like Eileen Warnes, and even though they've done horrific things, I don't see them as evil. For what because of things that I understand. I feel like you kind of know evil when you're up against it. You know it. It's very clear. And I do think it's by our choices. So it can be psychological too.
You don't see Jeffrey Dahmer as evil?
I see what he did as extremely evil.
Okay.
I see what he did as is extremely evil. But when you really understand and you listen to him after the fact, you begin to start to question. And it's not to say that he's not going to be, punished. That's between him and God. But it made me question his, our definition of evil. He didn't enjoy it. He felt compelled, but he didn't enjoy it. There's a difference, people who torture, who, there's awful things that humans do, awful things to each other. They just do. And, I'm not saying that he didn't deserve the death penalty or whatever it was, but yeah, I didn't see him, or Eileen Wuornos, she killed 7 men. I didn't see her as evil. I saw what she did as evil.
Yeah, I mean, there's other verses, for example, that say, if you can mute yourself. I was just hearing myself. But I'm saying there's other verses in the Quran, like if you search for the word expression, who are more evil, so you'll see a lot of verses that talk about people who are evil, right? And so I say more, just search for more evil, actually, and you'll see them. So there is a bunch of verses that will come. You can look at them. There's like 737, 157. So like, now who's more evil than one who rejects these proofs from God and disregards them? And then they're saying like, who's more evil than those who invent lies about God or reject his revelation? Who's more evil than one who fabricates lies about God or rejects his revelations? Yeah, so it's kind of just mainly about the same context. And who are more evil than those who are reminded of their Lord's proof and disregard them without realizing what they're doing.
Even those who boycott God's masjids, where his name is commemorated, and contribute to their desertion. And
yeah, that's another one.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like we have this understanding of evil in our cultures, and we think, oh, Hitler, there you go, Hitler and Stalin, evil, there they are, and of course when we come to the Quran, we're seeing a lot larger category of people who could be in that group.
See, I see it folded into it because if you have someone like Hitler or Jeffrey Dahmer,
you're rubbing that mic.
I'm sorry. All right. I see that as it's folded into it, because if you're doing that, Hitler felt like he was God. He decided life and death. He destroyed people. Stalin did the same thing. So, Jeffrey Dahmer did the same thing. Anybody who takes a life, or anybody who tortures or oppresses, they don't believe. You don't believe in God. You can't possibly believe in God and do those things. So I don't see it as just, in such a narrow definition. I think we're humans. There's lots of gray areas. And so, yeah, that's how I see it, that it is the same thing when you're reading about, anyone who, doesn't, who rejects God and his revelations. Well, if you're killing all these people, my guess is you're rejecting God, because you're saying, no, I'm just as powerful, if not more. And I have the power of life and death.
Yeah, I can't help but look at that. Who are more evil than those who are reminded of their Lord's proofs, then disregard them without realizing what they are doing? So they're shown the mathematical proof, or They're shown, even you're talking about God. There's so many proofs about nature that prove that there's God. But I don't know how wide I want to go with in this one. But at least you can really talk about the miracle that was given to us of the mathematical miracle. And he's saying, who are more evil than those who are reminded of their Lord's proofs, then disregard them without realizing what they are doing. Consequently, we place shields on their hearts to prevent them from understanding it, the Quran, and deafness in their ears. Thus, no matter what you do to guide them, they can never be guided. And so it just, the Quran is talking about evil in context of believing messengers, believing God, obeying the Quran. And it seems like even these other evil things that we have in society where people are destroying other people's lives and stuff, that what if they die before 40? You know, that was forgivable. But the most evil thing that anyone can do is advocate idolatry or promote it, or however you want to say it. It just seems like in these contexts, you're fabricating lies, attributing them to God. Who's more evil than that? It's like, oh, that's idolatry. You're creating a doctrine other than from what is God. Who's fabricating lies is a big one. So you're creating ideas that are not from God. That's idolatry. That he's saying, who's more evil than that? And it's constantly over and over again. It's about lies about God, or even rejecting his revelations. He's saying, who's more evil? So it's just interesting. It refocuses the understanding of what is evil in God's eyes, the most evil. Because he's asking, what's more evil? And so it's like, whoa. The most evil is that. What do you guys think? I don't know.
What do you mean? Who he's asking? Who's he?
No, what I'm saying, God is saying, who's more evil than one who conceals a testimony? He's saying, who's more evil than one who lies about God? He says, who's more evil than one who fabricates lies and attributes them to God? Who's more evil than one who invents such lies? Who's more evil than one who rejects these proofs from God and disregards them? Who's more evil than one who invents lies about God? Who's more evil than one who fabricates lies about God? Who's more evil than one who fabricates lies about? See how I'm saying over and again, it's lies. It's lies. Nobody's more evil than somebody who lies about God or adds something to what God's doing, or disregards them. Who's more evil than one who is reminded of these revelations of his Lord, then insists upon disregarding them? You know, wow. It's like,
I've seen that too.
That's the excess of evil.
Yeah.
You remember excess of evil?
Yeah, that would be Iraq, Iran, and who was the third one? North Korea? I can't remember.
So that means that, fabrication of lies. I don't think everything is always about, I think it's, we have to be careful not to just think that, everything does have to do with God, but I'm talking about like with the religion thing, so it would be creating innovation, because that's a fabrication, is it not?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, for example, Stalin actually disregarded God's message. He didn't care about that stuff. So he disregarded it. So the biggest crime he did would be disregarding the message, disregarding or lies about God. Well, God doesn't exist. That's a lie about God as well. I mean, it seems like that's the core of it. I don't know. I'm just reading these things.
Yeah, but when you do anything that's dark, considered evil, you automatically are disregarding. God and his revelations.
Sure.
It's an automatic.
Sure. You know, I agree with you. I'm not arguing that point. All I'm saying is that sometimes we provide a what do you call it? Camouflage, like evil. The true nature. What is the most evil? The true nature of evil is camouflaged in these gross things that people do out there, whereas God is saying the core of it is in the lies about God, in the idolatry. That's at the core of it. Whereas we look to the bloody events, or how oppressive they are, and these kinds of things, and we may lose sight of what is most evil in mankind.
So you're talking about the motivation.
What's at the core of it? I'm saying
that's the motive. What is motivating it? You know, and it always has to do with dismissing God in one form or another. You know, I mean, when God makes revelations and when God makes laws and rules, you know, we try and do the best that we can, right, in following them. You know, someone who decides to commit murder, or somebody who, you know, oppresses a people or starves a people or whatever, I mean, they think they're God, or they think that they're better than God, or they know more, or that it's God. You know, to me, the worst ones are the ones who think that the evil that they're doing is God, like God likes it. You know, this is what God wants. So, you know, to me, some of the worst people are the ones who use religion to create evil.
Yeah, I think the messenger talked about the Ayatollah that way, that kind of a understanding as well.
Right, and all the little sheikhs and imams and anybody who takes an authority, who acts like they're an authority, and uses it for their own self-interest, or who tries to impose it on others without respecting what God says. There's no compulsion in religion. There's no, you can't force someone. And, you know, everybody's at their own level. So it's to me, it's walking a fine line. We have to be really, really careful. And we have to constantly look inward. You know, what is my reason? What is my motivation? What's the end result for me?
Right. It's not that somebody isn't more of an authority. There are some of us who have, not us. I'll leave me out of it. But I'm just saying, I don't know. I mean, I think I know what the message is fairly well. So I won't do any false humility in that sense. I think I understand that. I don't know the Quran backwards and forwards, like God willing I can someday. But you can know more. I mean, God talks about, you know, the ones who are well-founded in knowledge. He even talks about the people who, hey, don't send everyone who has knowledge to war, because people got to teach the religion. So right. there are those who have the religion and have an understanding, and I mean, it's not like if somebody acts like they know or saying that they know, that it's a warning. Oh, better not listen to them. I mean, because there are people who know, and maybe they haven't even applied it to their life in all the ways they should. That's not the same as knowing the religion. You can know the religion and not having had applied it perfectly as well. So
let me make it really clear. I'm not talking about just people with knowledge. I'm talking about people with knowledge who abuse it, who don't follow what they preach. You know, God talks about the one who tells others to do something, but they don't do it. So I'm talking about people like that, and there are plenty of them around. I'm not talking about, and I'm not talking about people with knowledge. That's a different thing, because there's also a difference between, you can have all the knowledge in the world. If it's not applied, it's not going to help you. If you don't apply it, it's not going to help you. You know, and there's a huge difference between knowledge and wisdom. And you can have all the knowledge, but if you don't got wisdom, it's not going to help you either. You know, I mean, anybody can read and parrot and just repeat and repeat and repeat. Anybody can do that. That to me does not make them knowledgeable. It is how they use it in their life. Are they practicing it? And I'm not saying people aren't allowed to make mistakes, but I'm talking just basic. Are they practicing it? You know, and not dictating it. That there's a difference, and that is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, you know, don't send people off to war so we lose all of the knowledgeable people. I'm not talking about that. That's a completely different thing. This is what I was talking about.
So our study has been on YouTube, and I just wanted, before I turned off the broadcast, I just want to let everybody know who joined us on YouTube, and that, you know, we are going to have our next study, God willing, on Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, God willing. And thank you all for joining us. God bless you guys.